Okay, so there'll be intro music playing. I say that at the start of all of them to give some time to let the music play. Uh, all right, welcome to the GRODCAST. I'm your host, Young Greasy, and today I'm joined by my guest, imgabbage. Imgabbage, would you like to say hello?
Hello. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, all of my TikTok fans. Uh,
You have TikTok fans?
yeah, uh, I just hit 10,000 likes, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a big accomplishment, but I feel good about it. So
I would be proud. And I think you're being sincere. I don't see the tell this time.
it'll come. All right, so let's just dive into the first question. I'm Gabbage. What is important?
What is important? That is such a big question. Oh man. Well, there's a lot of things that are important. I mean, like important to the world, important to me. I guess just whatever. You leave it open for this reason. Um, well, let's see. I guess what's important to me is really considering what brings joy. Um, Also, thinking a lot now recently about how important health is. Um, yeah.
Yeah, as we get older, that health factor gets more important. But I hear it all goes downhill after 30.
I was joking with one of my friends. As soon as she turned 25, she, like, the next day went for a run and she was complaining about everything, like her knees and her feet. I'm like, oh, that's what happens. Once you turn 25, everything goes to shit. She
Yeah.
looked so shocked.
Yeah, it's the year they say your brain stops developing. Um, and I feel like my brain has kept developing.
Your
I was
brain's still
yeah,
developing.
I was talking to Charlie about this, or I mean Chuz, and he made a good point where if you keep learning new things, your brain has to be developing because how else are they storing the information? So,
Yeah. I mean, so I think that the difference is not necessarily brain development. I think what they mean by that term is um, reaching maturity, essentially, reaching like a full point of capacity with inhibitory control, like a fully developed frontal lobe is that you're able to make rational decisions to your fullest extent. But yeah, I mean, like the brain is continually developing. You're learning every day. It wouldn't make sense if we weren't able to continue to learn from an adaptive standpoint.
yeah. I uh I think that's a good point.
No, it's something I have to think about a lot. So, I mean, yeah, because I study like learning, I study intelligence, and I study cognition. I'm always thinking about what is learned, right? Um, what is something that is just inherent to an animal? What is it learning from its environment? How do we separate the two?
Yeah, I that reminds me of when you were telling me about your time in New Zealand and the birds putting rocks in your boots. Uh,
Well, some of that had to have been learned. I'm guessing because it's probably one bird started it. It was mostly the younger birds. Also, it was definitely a form of play. But anyway, what young Greasy is talking about here, sorry, I have to smile when I say that. What young Greasy is talking about here is I used to work with parrots in New Zealand. They're called the Kea, Kea, and they're just pretty much the funniest, most naughty birds that you can imagine. They live pretty much, all they live for is stealing and destroying. And if that doesn't bring you joy, I don't know what will. But they were always playing, always being really naughty. It was like working with a bunch of infants or kids with wings and these really
Middle
long beaks.
schoolers.
Yeah, middle schoolers. I also work with middle schoolers. They're about equal. They're about equal. I think the middle schoolers would take offense at that. But yeah, they were so playful, and so they somehow knew when I couldn't move while I was doing an experiment because I'd have to hold something and stay absolutely still, and they would waddle over to me carrying the largest rocks they had in their enclosure and just drop them into my boots or my wellies as they call them. And it was really funny because not only are they doing this, but every rock that they dropped in, they'd have to peek over the edge and make sure it went in. And that was really cute. But they also kind of started small. So they started with pebbles, and I thought I was just walking like a complete imbecile. Like I couldn't figure out how I was getting pebbles in these really tall rain boots. But actually, it was definitely just them slowly building up, and by the end, it was rocks like 6 inches and pieces of carrot because they didn't like the carrot in their feed, so they'd get the largest pieces and just put in my boot.
Yeah, I sympathize a lot with that. Uh, I too am not a big fan of carrots.
You don't like foods with color.
No, if it's orange, it needs to be like a Cheez-It or a Cheeto.
I remember when we were in the dining hall, like I would always tease you because your plate would be different shades of brown, but you would make a point that was different shades at the very least. Um,
Uh,
you'd have you'd have your what was it? Was it Pepsi or Coke, and then everything brown,
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Well, that's how you know it's got the nutrients, is it's brown.
Uh-huh. You gotta eat from all the different classes, all the different food groups that are brown.
Yeah, I'm just glad humans aren't. Well, there are brown humans.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Oh God, Chris.
Yeah. Anyhow, um, you are an avid lover of plants. Uh,
Yes.
of the plants you own, do you have a favorite? And can you tell us about these contenders?
Oh man, that's hard. That's super hard. So I feel like I've been outed because it's both my hobby and definitely my vice is I buy too many plants. Um, I'm at this point I wouldn't even say that I'm just like a houseplant lover. I'm a collector. I'm a hoarder of plants. Um, so I really have to think. But my favorite genus of plant is called Anthurium, and they're a epiphytic plant for the most part. So kind of like orchids, they like to grow on the trunks of trees and stuff. So they need special soil conditions. They're kind of picky plants. What I figured out is I like really picky plants that want to die. But I guess my favorite of those, there's just so many beautiful ones. I really like ones that have weird colors. So people have bred these Anthurium to have really strange emergent leaf color, or when the leaf first comes out, it's like bright purple or bright red. So I have some that come out lavender, which is wonky, and then fade to green or come out blue and red or orange. But I also like when they are kind of velvety or they have a weird texture. So some of them are like bumpy, kind of like packing bubble, like like bubble wrap, and others have like ridges or bumps. People in the community call them abs. The plant community is wild. It's a wild group. But you like plants.
I can't keep them alive.
Did you
Uh,
get a ZZ plant?
Not yet. I need to kind of clean out my apartment and make things more zen before I introduce a new chaotic element.
Plants aren't chaotic.
I don't know.
I guess
The
life is.
decreasing entropy in the system means increasing entropy outside of it. And the definition of living is decreasing entropy. Uh,
Is living decreasing in? Oh,
from
I
a,
guess, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I guess. I feel like as we get older, for some reason, it feels like entropy is constantly building. Like you're always fighting it. It's getting more and more chaotic as time goes by.
yeah. I think too that your your 20s seem to be an especially chaotic time. Uh,
For us especially. I mean,
yeah.
we went through a pandemic. I mean, okay. You had fun in college. I did not have that much fun in college. I was a goody two shoes.
Towards the end of it, you started having fun.
Yeah, a little bit. I was gonna go crazy though afterwards. That was the plan. I had it all planned out. I was waiting until I also was just scared. And now in retrospect, I think I was a little scared of losing control. I also was a little scared of, alcohol, in part because my mom was telling me that, addiction kind of runs in the family. I was like, well, shit, do I want to introduce this to my life? Turns out it doesn't even matter. I can't, you know me, I can't drink like more than like a half a beer and I'm woo all over the place. So, um, yeah, I'm fine, but, I really had fun during my gap year. And I was having fun up until pretty much
the
the
pandemic
pandemic
started.
started.
I
I don't
don't
know
know
how much you've talked about this. I haven't watched all the
episodes
episodes
yet
of the GRODCAST. Is that
what
Yeah,
what
the
it's now called?
broadcast.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I haven't watched them all, but I don't know how much you've talked about. I think it's such an important part of all of our lives, especially at this point. I mean, we came out of college. We had a few really good months. I don't know about you. We got lucky. Um,
Yeah, I'm so glad that I wasn't still in undergrad when COVID happened. Yeah, my sister was, and it uh, really hurt those years that she had to go through that. But grad school, like, on one hand, like, you can't really do experiments if you
yeah.
can't go into the lab. So for me, it just felt like a pause in my life.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel robbed of my youth almost.
I do too. I talk to Bryce all the time because he is, if I get this wrong on this, that would be funny. I think he's 2 years older than me. But maybe now he's one. I think I may have caught up. But yeah, it feels like you lose such an important part of your 20s with everything that happened. And definitely life went on pause. I forgot you went straight to grad school.
Yeah, yeah. So I had a few months of normalcy, but all of our classes went online, and I was stuck taking a bunch of Zoom classes that I personally just couldn't really get much out of.
Yeah,
Uh,
I feel that. It's hard. I mean, like, I work with middle school students. Again, I mentioned it before, but um, you can see how much of an impact it's had on them. Um, I realized that when I had some students read something out loud, they're sixth graders, and I thought they were just being nervous and shy about reading out loud. And I realized no, some of them were actually struggling with reading in a way that I wouldn't have expected several years ago. But they are the generation that was the generation that was the most affected by COVID. Definitely are these middle school students that are coming out, and you can definitely see it in terms of their development, their social skills, how they respond to authority, just this general idea of what it is to be mature, that what life expects these students to have in terms of academics, in terms of how they hold themselves, and how they behave. There's all sorts of little behavioral problems that seem to have come out of it. But going back to the pandemic itself, because I think you know this, right? Because I was in New Zealand. I had to escape. I I had to escape New Zealand. Like I had to get on a plane the week everything was shutting down. Um, and that in itself, I still, every time I go through an airport, I have this memory because I wasn't sure I was going to make it home. I remember I flew into Auckland. And I'd been warned that there were huge lines, so I built in like 6-8 hours before my next flight. Um, and I got through the line in a few hours, maybe an hour or two. So it wasn't as bad as I originally thought. But walking up to the check-in line, because you have to check in for an international flight at the desk, every group in front of me was crying. Every single group in front of me got bad news. And so I was pretty much in tears by the time I reached it because it was just me, everyone in front of me, someone didn't have a seat or someone's flight got canceled, and I was just ready to completely, I was like, oh, I'm stuck here. It's fine. It is what it is. And then I got up there and they're like, here's your boarding pass. You're fine to go. And I was like, what? That was so easy. And they're like, you're lucky you flew Air New Zealand because all the American airlines screwed everyone over. And I remember being in the airport and looking, and if you looked at like the flight board or whatever they call it, every single flight except for like maybe 5 was in red and said canceled. Super surreal. Anyway.
Yeah, and that probably went on for a while.
Yeah.
Right now, as at the time of filming, we're just coming off of the cyber, like it was CrowdStrike or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And thousands of flights were canceled because the computer systems just completely, anything with the PC, like Windows operating system got caught in like a reboot death loop, and I don't know, it just makes me anxious about flying, that so many things can go wrong and change.
Well, as someone who's gone through it, and I mean, you remember the South Point. Sorry, that's the name of a mall nearby. The Southwest, like airlines where like everything got canceled. I was there too. I was flying during that too. So as someone who's gone through all these different things, what I've kind of learned is it'll all be fine. But that also might just be my response that I've learned, and I've kind of had to realize I just do this. Whenever something large or impending doom is going to happen, I just kind of go, all right, I guess. And I just kind of let it happen, and I figure it out as I go, and then I unpack it later.
Yeah, I guess this too shall pass.
This too shall pass. Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the second of the 6 questions. What is one of your favorite movies and why?
Oh, shoot. I really have to think. Oh man, oh gosh, this is all your questions are so hard. Sorry. Let me think through this 1 second. You also told me what the questions were going to be a few months ago, but I forgot clearly.
I
I don't know if that's supposed to be a secret or not, but
I like to leave like a lingering sense of, oh, I know these, without actually having it at the front of your brain, because it feels good to stump somebody.
yeah, to give them a real question. I think the problem is I love movies, but I really struggle with picking favorites, and it's something true for anything. If you tell me like what's your favorite color, what's your favorite this, I'll have an answer usually, but it's because I've been forced to. Someone's asked me too many times before, and with movies, I usually just get away with, oh my god, there's so many, they're so good, and I can move on. But right now, in the format of the podcast, come on, Chris. Okay, let's see.
Well, as a precedent, you're allowed to give up to 10 movies.
Up to 10 movies? All right. Let me really think on this. Hmm. I mean, the problem is there's movies that are good. There are movies that are bad, but also good, and then there's just movies that are bad but formative, and also there are movies that are going to get me canceled if I like them too much. So I'm trying to think through the plot lines of whatever I want to say. Okay, let's see. Movies. I'm gonna just go with movies I really enjoyed as a kid for now. Um, so I think like my favorite Disney movie growing up was Tarzan, which makes a lot of sense given who I am now as a person who loves animals. I'm trying to think if there's anything really good that I've watched recently. Oh boy.
Do you resonate with Tarzan or with Jane?
With Tarzan or with Jane?
Yeah.
I would like to think I resonate with Tarzan. I don't want to be the helpless chick that's just being carried through the jungle, like over the shoulder. I mean, like, yeah, I guess to some degree, maybe I also want that as well. But I mean, um, no, I mean, what was always interesting about that movie that I really liked is how much he understood the gorillas, right? So I guess I just have always gravitated towards movies where there's someone who understands an animal or something like that. Um, Favorite movies, though. What was the last movie I watched? I've been really focused on TV shows lately. Hmm. You actually did stump me on this one, Griffin.
Yeah, favorite TV shows will probably be next season.
Will be next season. Are you gonna have repeat guests?
Probably.
Who? This is my way of giving me more time to think. But who's your number one repeat guest in the moment?
Probably, uh, Doc Pepper.
Doc Pepper.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to know what their non-alias is?
Oh,
You can bleep it out. Oh yes! Wait, did you guys ever continue with your rap battle?
No,
Is it still ongoing?
but it is on Spotify, so.
It is on Spotify? Perfect. Okay, and that was all I need. I actually remember it now what my favorite movie is, because I do actually have a favorite movie. I really like Hunt for the Wilder People. I'm not sure if you've seen that movie.
I haven't.
Oh my god,
it.
It is great. It's this film. It's this New Zealand film about this kid who's going through the foster system. He really thinks he's really tough, kind of gangster. He's far from it, but he is sent to a house in like the New Zealand countryside, essentially, with this really older couple, an older woman who's very loving, and this really tough older man who is someone who is really good in the wilderness, really good farmer, etc., etc. And then the old woman dies, and then it's just him and the old man. And it's really, really funny. It was directed by, and can't remember his name. Is it? I'm gonna butcher it, so you're gonna have to correct me. But I think it's Tahiti.
Taika Waititi.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I really like all of his movies. He also has a TV show that came out recently that's really good called Res Dogs, which I really recommend.
Yeah. I've seen all of that, and I thought it was great. I wish there was more seasons, but it did feel like it ended in a complete way.
It did. Yeah. I love that show. I love the idea of it. First of all, because it's completely produced by indigenous and native people. It's all the actors are as well. It really, it just it lent some legitimacy to a lot of the jokes that they were telling, as well as just the stories they were telling.
Yeah, I think the opening scene on the first episode is pretty iconic with them stealing the truck of Flaming Flamers. Yeah.
Yes. If anyone would actually, in retrospect, if anyone would like that show, I'm not surprised that you do. I feel like I don't know why, but I could imagine a younger you as one of the main characters.
Yeah. Yeah. I I think it was such an ensemble cast, and like the key to the show is the chemistry between the four res dogs, and yeah, it just it felt like I was in high school watching that, and being along for the ride. And it
I
was
kind of
dark enough for me. So
perfect. Yeah, you gotta get something dark for you. No, I mean, there's definitely something to it. It made me miss high school, like the high school days when you would just do things without caring about it too much or thinking about the consequences. Um, I think once I got to college again, I became a lot more strict with things. But even I guess my friends would probably say the same thing in high school. But I remember, hopping the fence to go onto. I don't know why we were going back to like our high school, but we would hop the fence at our high school and go hang out there where we weren't allowed to usually during summers and weekends.
yeah, you were a budding tennis star at the time.
Oh, I think I know what you're referring to. I mean, I did play varsity tennis all 4 years of high school. Yeah.
Well, cool. Uh, Along the same lines, what don't you miss about Arizona, and what do you?
What don't I miss about Arizona? The racism.
Yeah.
I mean, just to be really frank, like anti-Mexican racism was very present the whole time I was a kid. I don't know if it's gotten any better since I've left, but I mean, we had SB 1070. I'm not sure if you know that law. So that was a state law where they could pull anyone that was suspected of being illegal, an illegal immigrant, over. And so, of course, what does that mean? What does it mean to look like an illegal immigrant? It's to look like you most likely are, from across the border. You're Mexican, you're from Latin America. That was struck down, of course, because it's just so obviously racist. And one of the reasons it got struck down, actually, is because of the brother of a friend who got pulled over. He spoke in court. And his whole family is hella white, but they're all swimmers, so they're all very tan. And he just got pulled over. He wasn't doing anything wrong, but because it was suspected that he was an illegal immigrant. Purely on the basis, again, of color. So there was that. Probably that's the biggest one for me. I would say I don't miss the heat, but there are moments. I don't miss the summer heat, but also I got really used to it. I used to play tennis in the summer, and I had the best time doing it. My closest friend, I met playing tennis during the summer, and it would get to be 110 degrees, so add like 10, 20 degrees because you're on the court. But we had a blast. I don't know how we did it. But I do miss the warmer weather in other months. So like in the winter, it is nice for it to be so warm. Things I miss the rainy season a lot. We get monsoon season in Arizona, and it is beautiful. The desert becomes really green. We have crazy storms. I also just miss rain during any season. When it rains during the winter, the clouds come down. Tucson, where I'm from, is in a valley, so you can imagine like the clouds are down in the mountains and the hills. So when you're driving through, there are all these giant saguaro, columnar cacti, and all these weird, well, what would be weird to other people, trees like palo verdes, which they have green bark and all these vibrant colors against red or purple rock, and then you also have all these clouds just have descended down, and you're just driving through it. I miss the nature, which you can probably tell. I miss the drives. I miss driving through the mountains. I lived kind of in the middle of nowhere to some degree, and so there was a lot of nature nearby. Anytime we go walk in a neighborhood, we'd see something. So pretty regularly, we'd see javelina. So javelina are there's a book that's where they're like javelina are not pigs, but they're kind of like pigs. They're like boar, um, desert boar almost. We would see coyotes, deer. We had bobcats, foxes. We even had a mountain lion that would walk by our house. I never saw it, but my parents did. And we caught it a bunch of time. My parents put out camera traps and we saw it. So, yeah, I miss that. I miss the food. Of course, I miss my family, but I'm obligated to say that. Yeah, I don't know. What do you miss about back home?
About Arizona?
No! What do you miss about New York, man? Come on.
I I actually miss the winter. Like I really like when it everything's covered in the snow and it's colder because when it's colder you feel more alive, I think. Um
Yeah.
it really wakes you up and I just think back to playing in the snow with my childhood dog and um yeah, I don't get anything like that out here in California. So,
You could go up a mountain.
oh, I did go to Tahoe right before COVID hit and
Hmm.
skied. I got a little altitude sick, but it was cool. Um, but in Berkeley, the weather is kind of it's either like 65 and sunny with fog or 55 with clouds and
It's
yeah.
constantly the same weather. I was also talking to someone who is at Stanford right now, who similarly came from, the Northeast, and they were talking about how much they missed the seasons.
Yeah.
Do you miss the fall also? That was something that was really cool to experience when we were in college.
I I do miss the fall more than I miss the spring.
Fair. Arizona, well, Tucson had two springs, which was pretty cool. You get two seasons of wildflowers.
Huh. Is that is there a reason?
I don't know what that reason. There is one, I'm sure. I'm guessing if I had to guess, probably we get one pre and post monsoon season because we have our second spring happens in summer.
Okay.
Um, and so we get one before and after. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. All right. Oh, I have more questions for you though. I know you're supposed to be interviewing me, but I have questions. I
Okay.
have questions for you. So are you happy though at Berkeley?
Am I happy? Um, I don't think I would be any happier anywhere else. I would be the same a lot of places, but um, I don't know. I think the main factor of lack of happiness is just that most of my world of people is on the East Coast, in the Northeast, and I really don't have much of a social network here besides like people in my program. and
Emily.
Emily, who, for legal reasons, will not be exposed on this podcast.
Yeah, that's fair. I get that. It's hard building a network somewhere so new. It's also,
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong. I think it can also be really hard to make a network where to, to feel like you're not building a network in a place where there's a lot of people. I feel like as a grad student, it's really hard to expose yourself to new situations in a way you could have before. I miss that from college, how
Yeah.
easy it was to make friends. Um, I don't know about you. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Like, why haven't I made friends the same way I used to? I also feel like there's a part of me, I don't know what's happened, that's closed off since coming to grad school.
Yeah. Do you think you would, or then do you think you would have a easier time making friends if you weren't in grad school right now?
I think I'd have an easier time making friends if I wasn't in this part of the States, similar to maybe you. Um, I've grown to really love Durham, mostly because of my boyfriend. I point that way because he's somewhere in that general direction. Um, but it took a bit to like it as much as I do. It had to be with someone who has been in the area for a while and has seen the city grow and has so many stories and just knows where to go. It was also really hard coming during the middle of the pandemic. I joined grad school in January 2021, so everything was closed. I pretty much, all I knew were the grocery stores and the plant stores. Because that's how I felt better. So I'd go buy a little treat, a little plant.
And they only accumulate.
Yeah, this is Bryce's office. If we were in my office, you would just see plant everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. This is a massage of sanity. This is just like, I wanted to not look as insane as I actually am.
That's why I'm where I am too, so.
Well, you see, you have the scribblings of a madman behind you.
Oh. Ignore
what is that?
Ignore that. Don't worry about it.
Wait, what does it say? Can I make out anything? I can read out. I can see a D, and that is it. Are you in your office?
I'm in a shared office.
I have a shared office too. What do you think about shared offices?
It's nice for the social aspect, but also it's sometimes hard to get anything done.
I can't get anything done in my office. But I have found other offices where I can. So I'll go intrude in other labs' offices. I've become like an add-on. There was someone giving a tour the other day of their lab, and I was in their grad student office, and the advisor / PI was pointing and like, that's my grad student, and they're doing this, and she pointed at me and said, and that was not mine. And she kept on going.
Yeah, you're just an adjunct.
Yeah, that's what I am.
All right. Well, moving along, why do you do what you do?
I feel more prepared for this. I feel like you must feel prepared also because you always have to give your elevator speech. I do what I do in part because I love it, and I have to ask that question all the time though, because as a grad student, it can be hard to remember why I do what I do. Oh man, I've been asking that question so much lately though, just because I'm in my 4th year now, so I'm in that slump. But I love working with animals. I love trying to get a better sense of how an animal's mind works, what it's thinking, what its motivation is. And so I study animal cognition, and what I mean by cognition is kind of like intelligence, how the mind works. You can imagine that just like if you have siblings or if you have a close group of friends, you're all good at different things. Maybe someone's really good at math but sucks at social interactions. Maybe someone's really good at navigating around all the back roads in town. And there's just lots of different ways to be smart is what I'm trying to get at. And there's lots of different forms of intelligence. Well, different species vary in terms of their intelligence. And I don't mean necessarily just at a general level, but different forms. You can imagine that a species that needs to be able to navigate more complex landscapes might have better spatial memory, etc., things like that. And I truly believe that if you look out into the world, it's so clear that there is a huge diversity of intelligence when we look at animals. And so the natural question that comes afterwards is why? Why is it? And I don't think it's just merely, this animal has a tiny brain, this one has a big brain. I think it goes beyond it, and that part of it is likely due to natural selection, or the idea that you need to have certain adaptations that allow you to better survive and reproduce in the environment that you're in, whether that's physical or social. And so that's kind of what I am studying. I'm interested in looking at how different species differ in their cognition and why, and how this might be related to their social and their physical environments. And what's really interesting about that, at least it was to me as someone who studied evolutionary biology in undergrad, is that that is not something that is widely studied in the field of what we call comparative cognition, animal cognition, whatever you really want to call it. Typically, actually, in that field, comparative just means I studied something that wasn't a human. So if you do a study on a chimpanzee, they'll call it comparative cognition, with what's comparative just referring back to the fact that, okay, we didn't say human, so this is a reference point that we're comparing to. And so for me, that's very anthropocentric. And if we really want to understand humans in general, we can't just continually compare ourselves to other species without bringing a bunch of other species into the equation. Because generally with evolution, we often see trends. We see general trends across species. An example I could imagine with cognition is maybe species that live in a larger social group might have better social cognition, or be better able to understand others' goals and intentions, etc. But yeah, so I guess that's what I do. I don't know why I do it necessarily with primates right now. So I am studying lemurs. Lemurs are very cool. Don't get me wrong. They are awesome. But they're not the brightest of the bunch. It's kind of like, you can imagine, the thing I always say, I should say, is it's like there is, the lights are on, but no one is home. Sometimes they're not super bright. There are a few really bright lemurs. There's individual variation. There's species variation as well. But they're a great system for studying, again, how social and physical environments might impact cognition, because they live in a great diversity of different social systems, some living rather solitary lives, others living in really large groups, some feeding on a diet that requires them to explore a lot of their environment, others feeding on diets that don't mean that they have to as much, all sorts of things. But I think my true love really is birds, and I'd like to get back to them eventually.
Well, that's a great lead-in for our next question. imgabbage. Are birds real? And if so, why haven't we noticed it by now?
This brings me back to the quintessential Griffin question, which is what is a bird? Which I think you asked me before, almost like, well, no, when did we meet each other? Whenever you first started
Yeah.
knowing that, I started studying birds. But anyway, birds are real. Thank you, Griffin. And
Crazy.
oh, I said nothing. Thank you. I'll have to bleep that out. Almost revealed. Okay, anyway. Birds are definitely real. I'm not sure why you haven't noticed that they are real. But I think generally the rest of the world has.
Uh, Maybe some people on this flat planet of ours, but uh, I guess going off of that, do you have ties to any foreign agencies that are feeding you answers to the GRODCAST?
Uh, if you want to argue that Mexico, for some reason, has a reason to, the Navy.
Okay. I don't think I could hold my own against the entire country of Mexico, so
Mm-hmm.
well, jury's still out, but anyhow, who is one of your favorite historical figures and why?
Who is one of my favorite historical figures and why? Ooh, this is another. I hate these favorite questions. Um, Historical figures. For some reason, I feel like this is one of those standardized tests that we had to take in K through 12. I'm being asked. We had the Ames test in Arizona, but let's see. For some reason, the thing that immediately comes to mind as a historical person is Steve Irwin.
Okay, that's a good pick.
I mean, just I feel like any 90s kid growing. Oh man, I thought of some. Everyone I'm coming up with are people who were on the TV when we were kids. I just also thought of the Crap Brothers. Yeah. If you watched the Boomafoo growing up. Okay, let me think about some. Let me see. Oh, I feel like people are going to really judge me on those answers. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know, Frida Kahlo. So let's see. But wondering if any of this is going to be usable. But like jumping around, going back to Steve Irwin, I think that what was incredible about him is just that he was able to make people empathize with animals that we never would have really thought about in that way before. Like, he really, I think, to some degree, made people love reptiles, and especially reptiles that we kind of find scary. Then the next one with the Crap Brothers, they made me really enjoy teaching people about animals, and I always wanted to be on that show. I think if I wasn't a scientist, I'd really enjoy just doing something educational where I'm working with people and teaching them about animals. And then jumping once again back, I guess Frida Kahlo just because she okay. I mean, she's come to really represent like Mexican women in the world of art. She kind of subverted, I guess, the narrative of what it meant to be a woman. There's just so many interesting things about her. I mean, like, she was a bisexual. I believe she was also a socialist. There's just so much. I don't know. Her art has always really spoken to me too. She's someone who dealt with a lot of personal strife and pain, and you can kind of see that in her art. Because I'm not sure how much you know about Frida Kahlo. I can't remember if you took any of the art classes.
I just took basic drawing.
You just took basic drawing, nice. But Frida Kahlo was in a bus accident, and during that accident, a pole went through her back. And so she had permanent injuries ever since that accident. She may have also had some other issues before that, I can't remember. But because she was in so much pain, she was often bedridden. And so she would just paint these beautiful self portraits, sometimes of her herself in the bed, but also just of herself feeling all this pain and trying to find a canvas for it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, we channel our suffering into the art. So, well, moving right along again, if I said that earlier, what is not important?
What is not important? Oh, for me, I guess what I would argue what is less important than people make it out to be is semantics. I hate an argument over
Commas.
beyond just comments. I mean, like over definitions. I feel like so many times we're arguing the exact same point, but we're just speaking it slightly different, and we're agreeing on what a definition should be. And I think what is really important is understanding. And so if we can come to the same understanding but say it in a different way, I think we should be fine with that.
That's a lot of people would need to change. Uh,
Yeah, I mean that's something I always struggled with philosophy. I don't know about you. I had trouble taking philosophy courses because at a certain point I would feel like we were arguing the same point, or I would think we were going into something where it didn't really necessarily to me warrant the energy that was going into the argument anymore.
yeah, but people are people, I guess.
People are people. I think it is really valuable to other people. It's just to me, it's less important.
So, we met in college in New Haven, Connecticut. Do you have a favorite bar or restaurant in New Haven? And when
I'm.
was the last time you were there?
Oh, I haven't been back in a while. I'm worried that everything has closed.
Yeah.
I am nervous that everything has closed. I really liked Barracuda.
Okay.
They had pretty decent Latino food and was close to campus. At the time when we were there, the only like decent Mexican food besides like the food trucks that were on Science Hill was like a 20-minute Uber ride away, unless you
Oh,
wanted to go to the wharf. So I really liked Barracuda. Um, but now I've heard that it's really changed. That there's all sorts of restaurants around there. Where was your favorite? Oh, I should have said Berkeley Dining Hall. I forgot. I'm wearing this.
nice. Yeah, I still have some Thundercocks memorabilia.
I
And
wore this for you, just for now. I thought I'd get a comment, but I think I don't have this angled in the right way for you to see it.
yeah, I thought about wearing my shirt, which I got from Alex Chang, but uh, he hasn't really wanted to hang out ever since we dissed him. So,
Oof,
yeah.
that's rough. Um, have you talked to, I don't know, can we call people by their names? What is your rule here?
I'll bleep them out.
Okay, have you talked to Jacob lately?
Only through this group chat with like Alex Broadsweet. Uh,
Okay.
I do know he's bald now.
But he looks happy. That's what
Yeah.
I think is really important. I was before this trying to find the questions on my phone because I wanted to remember. I remembered that there were a few that I knew I was gonna have trouble with, but I'm not sure how chaotic your texts with people are in general. But ours just are all over the place. And
Yeah.
I was just looking, and the reason this reminded me of it is I sent you a meme of Dr. G, and you said he was misunderstood, and I mentioned that he failed Jacob, and you said, well, if I were Dr. G, I would have failed Jacob. What is this? How does this speak to how you're going to be one day? I heard on the last podcast that you want to be a teacher or something, end up teaching younger students. Are you going to be very, I can't tell if you're going to be strict or.
I I don't know. I think this is something that being bipolar, I tend to have very strong opinions about, but they're always changing, you know? Um, some people don't deserve success if they don't put in the work, and from what I've heard from Jacob's professors, he
From
was
what
just
you've heard?
showing up drunk to class, not trying.
If he showed up drunk to class, it would have been because you had a drink off. Like, it would have been because of you.
I think I'm not responsible if I'm not also drunk in class. So
Well, okay. I think what is also, oh man, I think it's kind of rich coming from you, all these things. I mean, because, okay, I think as a teacher, you could have I don't know. You could have unreal expectations also, because I don't know how much any of your listeners know, but young Greasy here was an incredible student, to the point where we would get like our final back and they would tell us like, oh, everyone got, the average was 30%, but there was one person who got 100% on this exam, and someone in the back would yell, and it was young Greasy, because you would.
I think it unfortunately put a lot of targets on my back.
Oh yes. No, I mean, to your credit, I mean, you are someone who is incredibly intelligent, but also very down to earth. You're a little snarky, but I really enjoy it. I think you love to riff off of everything, so I think you'll do well with a bunch of younger students. I think you will be respected. Actually, in fact, you will be respected in the way you need. Middle schoolers, the way I feel like you win with them is they have to fear you a little bit. Just the teensiest bit.
Carrot in the stick, So, we're moving into the last question. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self, and would you listen to yourself?
My 18-year-old self. That's hard. I guess we've already spoken on it before. I think I would tell my 18-year-old self to not sweat the small stuff, not that, like not be as strict with myself, to have a little bit more fun. But to some extent, doing what I did has gotten me to where I am today. I think I don't know to what degree that would have helped, and I don't know if I would have listened to myself either. I think one thing I will say that I have changed since I was younger, is I think I was a lot more type A when I was maybe 18, might be around the time I started changing up a little bit, but definitely learning to let loose a little bit, to not take everything to heart. Yeah, I don't know. What about you? I want to know. I'm sure someone has already turned this question on you, but I want to know.
I unfortunately can't answer this question. I think at the end of this season, I'm gonna do an episode where someone interviews me with the questions. So I'm saving it. Yeah.
I like that. No, it's hard. I mean, 18 year, when we were 18, I feel like we thought we knew everything.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. Man. Those are good times. I mean, I also something else I've been thinking about a lot is I can't believe how much energy we had.
Yeah.
In
It all went away afterwards, so um, maybe it'll come back again.
Maybe it will. We'll see.
Yeah.
Could.
Well, cool. I think we're wrapping up. I'm Young Greasy. This is I'm Gabbage. I'm Gabbage. Is there anything you'd like to plug or promote?
I think I'm all good. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you, though.
okay. Well, all right. This has been the GRODCAST. Thanks for listening, and something will play us out.
Nice.